Good morning to most, good afternoon to others, and good evening to the viewing audience across the pond. My name is Jason Myles, and welcome to another live, not pre-recorded, not old episode, but live episode of This is Revolution Podcast. I'm so glad to be back. I wanted to start exactly on time so you guys can be like, oh, it's on time, it's pre-record. It's fucked up. And it's racist. Committing hate crimes whenever you insinuate that we always start late. If you are new to This is Revolution, or at least new to it live, this is the Saturday free show where we usually go longer than the 1 hour format, but we always tend to go longer than the 1 hour format, but we do not go into the champagne room. And today, because of our guest and because of the topic, I think it's a wonderful time to open up the phone lines. So we'll be opening up the phone lines today on TIR. There's nothing more fun than opening up the phone lines when talking with Alfie and talking about dating. But before we bring in our guest, I want to say a massive thank you to all the people that came to the DC event and that watched it online. It was the first time we did one of these events and streamed it. It was something we put together on the spot. So a massive thank you to the Quintern. You have to find a new nickname for him because he's just part of the gang. He's no longer the intern, but Quinn is kind of morphed into like a Ryan from The Office, where he's always the intern, even though he's not. And I don't even think he's the youngest one. I think Stefan is younger. Anyway, also, thank you so much to the people at Bus Boys and Poets. And of course, thank you to Daniel Tutt for not just putting the event together, but also hosting myself, Derek Varn, and the Pascal Robert. We will be playing the live show for those of you that were not able to see it or didn't get online tickets. We'll be playing it on, I believe, July 4th. So stay tuned for that. Definitely let you guys know when that is going live. Now, on to the show at hand. No, I don't want AI to go on dates for me. Do we really not want that? On May 9th, the founder and CEO of the dating app Bumble predicted the future of dating, and it felt like she was describing an episode of the brilliant dark British science fiction series Black Mirror, a world where our virtual AI assistants do all the dating for us, weed out the Damians and Rufuses until we find our most compatible match. While this might be peak efficiency for the consistently busy PMC and grind set class, what might this mean for the future of dating for the rest of us? Has online or app-based dating become the preferred way to meet? If so, what will this AI format produce? Will it produce more of the negative, racist, and eugenic aspects that already exist and plague the app-based method? From our guest today, Alfie Brown's article in Jacobin Magazine, no, we don't need AI to go on dates for us. One thing the dating concierge indicates is that whatever transformation to the world of love and dating that the digital world orchestrates, it is now imposing certain universal harms. For a long time, a leading concern with data-driven dating apps was that they would privilege certain kinds of subjects over others. Bumble's initial unique proposition was that it would be the dating app for women. It requires women to send the first message to any match. Tinder was the center of a debate about whether it inherited racial biases, while OkCupid data was used by a far-right fake science laboratory to argue for eugenics. Oof, you hear that, Jeff Kennedy? Eugenics and dating apps. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong, and eugenics isn't me. There was a prominent fear that the digitization of dating might benefit or harm some groups disproportionately along the lines of race, gender, and the like. With the introduction of the AI concierge, the change in optics is clear. No longer will the algorithm work like an independent matchmaker, think Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy, that operates behind the scenes to make objective calls about who might suit who. Instead, it would function more like a personal lawyer, negotiating and advocating for the interests of its user. With the former, the worry the worry was that the matchmaker might be biased in one direction or another. With the latter, we all hope for equal treatment because we can all avail ourselves of the services of our own personal lobbyist. It just sounds disgusting, doesn't it? A digital personal lobbyist. How many people really want a personal lobbyist? But this doesn't mean that we are all treated well. In fact, it shows that the app is simply discriminating against each of us on behalf of each of us, along a potentially huge variety of dimensions that we may or may not be aware of. Again, this is an excerpt from Alfie Brown's latest in Jacobin Magazine titled, "No, we don't need AI to go on dates for us." Wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there's definitely links in the description. Please welcome my good friend and editor, Dr. Alfie Brown.
Hello everyone. Hi Jason, great to see you. I wish I could have been at the DC show with Pascal. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Not just Pascal, but we had Spencer.
No, but the star.
It was great, and I think you would have had a blast out there. I hope to see you in New York. I know we've been having these conversations. I don't want to say too much on air, but I'm pretty stoked about New York, and I get to meet the misses who I've never met in real life.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, cool. Yeah, no, we are, I think, planning to come, so that should be soon and fun. Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah. So yeah.
I have some.
When you open the phone lines, people are going to come call in for dating advice from you. Do you feel like
What you never want people to do is call me for dating advice unless you just want to learn how to get divorced quick. I can totally tell you how to get divorced quick and ruin everything good in your life.
Well, there's probably a market for that.
How to be a single dad. First, be horrible at pulling out. Now, Alfie's like, I'm trying to get tenure here. Thank you so much, seriously, for taking the time. We had to reschedule a little bit because originally we were going to do this while I was gone. I know it's a bit later in the UK and it's Saturday night, so I'm sure you have something cool planned. Now, last time you were on TIR, you were talking about banging robots. So what's the problem with AI?
Okay, yeah, no, it's interesting to do this. I just sort of felt, as you know, like I came on about a year ago, and I did a book about sort of about contemporary capitalism, platform capitalism, and sort of digital relationships and dating. We talked about this before, but did some fun stuff around sex robots, virtual girlfriend, VR girlfriends, AI girlfriends, that sort of stuff. But we won't go back into that too much. But when this story broke, I did think I felt like I should say something about it, given that I'd done all that work. But also, something kind of weird struck me about it, right? And I guess you were reading part of the article, but basically in an absolute nutshell, like this idea that your app would have a sort of AI assistant which would vet people for you. So instead of having to sort of scroll through the profiles, the AI sort of does the initial work of kind of like a matchmaking service, like rooting out the bad ones and picking out the good ones and so on. So it's not actually that different to how the algorithm already works. So again, I think it's probably like and with these things, as I was trying to say in the article a bit, like when there's something like this, AI is going to do this in the future, that basically means the algorithm's already doing it and they want to market it, basically. So is this stuff, I think, is stuff that's already kind of happening. But what sort of struck me, if I can try and do it in a sentence or two about this, was that it relies on the idea that the reason we're not meeting people and starting relationships that work is because we're not finding the right person, because there's so many people out there. We haven't got the time, as you said, or we haven't got the capacity to select the right one, right? So this whole kind of tech ideology suggests that if only you had the time and capacity to find the right person, you would be with them and you would be happy, you'd have the relationship or whatever. And I think that the opposite. I think that we're not as different as we think from each other, and there are loads of possible relationships that could work. And by thinking of ourselves as these extremely unique beings which are different to everyone else, it makes relationships impossible. So I guess, my argument, I guess, is a sort of Marxist one, which is basically that these days, because of the way that class has changed, there are less differences between us than there were. So if you think about the Victorian period, people would marry in their class, and they would also they wouldn't have AI, but they would have family members who said, okay, this looks like an appropriate family who's on the right kind of social footing or whatever. This is a good match or whatever. Or don't marry that person. They're not like the right sort of family, the right sort of class position or whatever. And so in those days, it kind of made sense to have this kind of process. But now, since like we're basically almost everyone is like working class, I don't think, then we're actually much closer together. So in theory, it should be easier to make relationships that work. The pool is huge. The possibilities are endless. So, but I think what these, the whole of this app idea, but also the whole of social and digital media do, tries to sell us a kind of cover-up story that we're actually very unique. We're actually, okay, it might be a gender thing, it might be a sexuality thing, it might be an ethnicity thing, or it might be a class thing, but it tries to get us to think of ourselves as these extremely sort of specific, individual, unique beings, rather than sort of admitting, as it were, that sort of we're all in this together. So if you see what I'm saying, it's that, you know, the worse things get at the level of economics, the easier it should be to have relationships. But it seems to be the opposite.
It feels like the opposite. Also, what you're saying about that, we all think we're interesting and special beings. Bert Cooper and I were having this offline conversation about this, and we kind of came to this conclusion that we feel like everybody thinks they're Anthony Bourdain, and everything has to be the epitome of chic and cool. Like going to a shitty bar and that might have a grill that makes like a greasy burger and fries, to me is cool. Like I dig it. I like that kind of food, but I don't need, you know, duck fat fries at a shitty bar so I can pretend that I'm that I'm special enough and I know what the fuck I'm eating anyway. And it does feel like, to me, these apps kind of play into this, because when you look at people's profiles, part of what they tell you, and we talked about this on another show we did about dating apps, is like there's people that help you with your profile. They're like, do you need pictures like this? And you need to say that you do things like this, and you need to really stand out in the crowd. So a dating profile, to me, to your point, feels like a job application. Why should you hire me? And I think we're both, well, maybe not you because you're super young, but I feel like we're both old enough to have existed in a world before app-based or even online dating, where you met people in real spaces. And sometimes you're not walking around with your CV on your chest, and you're not trying to read applications all the time. And I feel like this AI assistant, when I first read it, the headline, I was like, whoa, this is going to kill all of the natural things that we used to do.
Right. I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess. I mean, I think that's probably true. But I guess, and as you're saying, I mean, plenty of people met and meet partners, you know, without these kind of things to help, right? But I guess what I mean is that to stratify us in this way, it's, you know, obviously we could just zoom out and say that, you know, how does contemporary capitalism prevent revolution, for example? That seems like a different question to, do we need an AI to date us? But in a way, they're not a different question, because what it does is it stratifies us so much. So it's basically saying, well, you don't match you because you're this gender or this race, or you've got this sexual preference, and that person's got another one. So it sort of works. The whole system sort of works by drawing lines between us, and that's why you get this shuffling through the CVs, right? Because we're very suspicious. It's like that. Like are they the right match for us? Even like
Mhm.
in the language, it's the same. So I think there's like a connection between the way we think about ourselves, and the way we're sort of the way we date, right? So, but what, like, kind of paradoxically, so I suppose, kind of paradoxically, things are getting much more. The class differences are getting much smaller, right? Most of us, people talk about the 1% or whatever. We're all familiar with these stuff. Like,
Mhm.
we're all in the same pool now, so it makes less sense than ever to sort of stratify us along these sort of class-based lines, right? So, but in fact, it happens more often than ever. So that seems to me like the thing to point out about this system, right? Because it also implies that, I think the AI thing, it also implies some kind of like progress where eventually you'll find the thing that makes you happy, right? So as you're saying, I think I would say that digital capitalism makes it less and less likely that people will find happiness, is a bad word, but because it's impossible, but
Yeah.
sort of satisfaction at the level of relationships. But by talking about the future of AIs who help us get dates, it's implying that the system is there to help us progress towards a point of satisfaction or happiness or whatever, right?
I mean,
So, yeah.
yeah. There's this moment we're in right now where I feel like capitalism is intersecting on these really interesting points of people's desperation, especially when we think
Mm,
about like happiness speak or the wellness community, how therapy talk is so ingrained in everyday language. Like this is triggering, or everything's a trigger. Everyone you don't like is a narcissist.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
You see it in our own Facebook groups, leftist Facebook groups or whatever, in
yeah.
which like some of the moderators are like appointed themselves as like CV checkers to sort of go through and make sure that they're the wrong kind of left or whatever. You can't be in our pool. It's the
Yeah.
same logic that you see everywhere. So no, I'm with you. It's not just a dating question. It's how we think of things, and that, of course, um, that sort of splinters everything off, and it makes it more difficult to have the sort of solidarity and community that might lead to social change or revolution or whatever you want to call it. But it also makes it less likely that we will build relationships with a diverse group of people with
Yes.
whom we might start going out with or dating or marrying or whatever it might be.
Um, I did want to ask you this question because I feel like, and I think we kind of hit on this. There's something that I heard recently, and it made me laugh really hard when this person said it, was main character syndrome. Well, where it's not a real diagnosed disorder, but it is something that's kind of popular in this online world where people feel that they are the main character in their own book or movie. Do you think that this addition to online dating will help to build a more socially disconnected, narcissistic society?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question, and I guess like I am sometimes like wary of these terms, like, because I think narcissism is not necessarily bad, right? Like,
Mhm.
we all need narcissism to get up in the morning. You need recognition. Um, you need this kind of positive feedback loop, which can often be quite narcissistic, just to sort of live, right? But I think what we're seeing. Is and I hope this is some kind of an answer to your question, like the traditional ways in which we get recognition are like no longer there, right? So whether that might be you've got a job which actually has a decent salary and healthcare, or you've got like a wife and a family, or you've got like a mortgage and a house that you're paying down or whatever. Those are like things that people traditionally would get like a kind of positive feedback loop of recognition, which one could even call narcissism from. And those things are getting rarer and rarer. Um, and I read recently that like there was a survey of millennials, and like because like something like 70% hadn't the major life milestones were mortgage, marriage, or I can't remember what the other one was, and like 90% hadn't achieved those things, and they were asked to suggest alternatives, and they suggested running a marathon, going through a difficult breakup and coming out the other side of it. So, like,
Wow.
in place of a house and a husband or a wife or whatever it might be. You've now got a marathon, some sort of completed a marathon medal, and an X somewhere out there that you've managed to get rid of. But so what I'm trying to say in answer to your question, and slightly long-winded, I guess, is that because the traditional forms of recognition that produce the good narcissism have gone, we're looking for it in different places, and we're looking for it in much more non-social places. So the big difference between getting a lot of likes on Instagram or running a marathon and which no one cares about, those are quite isolated individual things. Saying you've got 1,000 matches on Bumble, but you still haven't got a partner or whatever. Those are quite individualistic, specific, personal things. The old forms were like, oh, I had a place in society. I was the pharmacist maybe or I was the petrol man in a community or whatever, and had friends and a house that I was paying down. Or these are much more like social things. So I'd say like it's not that we're more narcissistic than before, but that we're moving towards more individual narcissisms and away from more collective ones.
But that depresses me because I agree with you that narcissism, I mean, thank you for putting it that way, that it's always not a bad word. But again, when you are in this moment of oversimplification of psychology speak, which also can be problematic as well. We don't need to get into, psychoanalytics or modern day psychology, but to oversimplify that stuff and just assume that everyone you don't like is a narcissist, and not really understanding that there are things that we need within the word narcissism because we choose not to know more than what the TikTok influencer tells us about narcissism.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, and this is maybe a slightly more controversial part of my argument about this dating stuff, which you briefly mentioned in the intro, is that I think it comes to do with it comes down to a kind of Marxism that's needed instead of, and I don't know if you agree or not, but instead of the sort of concerns about sexuality, gender, and race, it's more of a class issue. And if I can explain that, it's that. Those examples are really interesting. Like, they were worried that OkCupid was being used to prove this eugenics or whatever. So it was like, oh, are the far right going to turn this into some sort of race thing? And there was some other people saying that I think Tinder was like inheriting racial biases or whatever. And then the whole point of Bumble at the beginning was the idea that dating apps were unfair to women or whatever. But, for me, all these and you're seeing more and more dating apps for specific types of people, right? So you can have Christian dating, you can have it was famous. There's OK Comrade, this sort of leftist dating.
Gross.
There was Trump.dating. There's actually 2 Trump-based dating sites, and there's all this stuff. But the point is that these are, I think, more like cultural categories, right? Like race, gender, sexuality. I mean, and we can now have a million different ways of talking about race and our own. We've all got our own identity. We've all got our own, even our own. We can even have some new pronouns or whatever, or we can have some new way of talking about our race or our sexuality. I could be any number of different things, and they're all to do with narrowing and specifying more and more the differences between us at the level of culture, at the level of who we are, right? Whereas it seems to me that due to, as I said, the growing sort of inequality, we're all more similar than ever, but we're desperate to stress that we're more different than ever. So that's why I think it's important to have like a Marxist approach rather than say, I'm obviously, as you know, in many cases I'd be, I would be saying that a feminist approach was needed or an anti-racist approach was needed. But in this case, I think they don't really do the job, because they're actually, those things like race, gender, and sexuality, they're actually being used to sort of take us in the wrong direction, to hide the fact that this is actually
I see what you're saying with that. I don't know if I'd phrase it that same way, because there's definitely dating sites. I don't know if it exists anymore because I haven't been on one for years, but there used to be a site called Black People Meet, for example. So there's definitely there's Grindr, right? So whatever sexual preference you have, whatever you're looking for, there is that. And if you're, I don't know, I moved down here to Mexico and I'm close enough to the border that when I was on, I think it was on Tinder and Bumble, when you open up the parameters, I was getting San Diego. or San Diego County, which is pretty damn white. And there were a few people, not a lot, but again, I wasn't on it for that long, that would say like no black guys.
Right.
I don't know if eliminating that in someone's bio is a bad thing, because why the fuck would I want to talk to somebody that doesn't want to talk to me, first of all?
Yeah.
And eliminating that on a bio, does that eliminate that person's personal bias? How many people have personal biases to begin with? And all this stuff does is ramp up our personal biases, right? I want a woman that's 5'3" with a fat ass and huge tits. So all I'm looking for is 5'3" and a fat ass and huge tits. So if you don't have those things, regardless of color, that I can see on the fucking profile, I'm just going the other way anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying that we should just like, all be on blind dates or something, because it'll be a waste of time. People should be able people should be able to have or go after what they want.
Yeah.
But I think I mean, it is a really difficult one, I suppose. But I suppose
let me even expand on what I'm trying to say. I agree with what you're saying, and I don't think anyone that I've heard has put it that way, that we're more alike, we have more in common than we think, but we do this little shit to make us think we don't, right?
And ultimately, that probably is what prevents, buying into that fantasy prevents us from getting the correct kind of material economic change that we actually need. Mm-hmm. Because then we start looking after the interests of our smaller group or people who have the same preferences as us, rather than the greater.
Well, it makes you feel, I mean, can you admit though, it makes you feel special when you think you're part of a special group?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're fucking tall. People don't know this, but Alfie is a giant man. He does this thing where he makes himself small on the camera, but when you see him in real life, you're like, holy shit. You're like 6'6", right?
I'm not that tall. I'm like 6'4".
He's lying. You're fucking lying. It's all legs. But
but
seriously.
But I think just thinking about that a bit more. I think that I think the problem is that we've also lost like you said. I mean, sometimes there's such a reluctance to say the thing that your grandma would have said, right? So you don't just want to be the one saying, "Oh, it's not like it was," But sometimes it's just not like it was, And like you said, I sort of with the online dating stuff. I mean, I think people. Well, here's my view on that, and I think we talked about this before. Desire, it happens not in a vacuum. It doesn't happen between two CVs, and this is probably the ultimate reason why the current Bumble AI thing is nonsense. Because if you say, imagine you see someone you fancy, right? It's most likely going to be, say you're at an event or something, and I don't know, you're watching a band that you like, and you see someone from across the room or whatever, and you've suddenly, you started to have desire because you've seen someone that looks like the sort of person you would like, right? And but of course, it's not just them; it's also the whole room. Right, the band that are playing, maybe the song that's on, maybe like the bar that you're in, maybe the school that you're in, and the play and the desk, the work, the lesson that your teacher's doing or whatever, and they're doing a certain kind of smirk at the teacher or whatever, and this allows you to start sort of desiring. And so desire, it's not something that happens between just a subject and an object. Okay, it's such an obvious point. What about like when you go and why do we like? I like trainers. I guess you call them sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
I like buying Nike trainers. I guess you call them Nike.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the way they are in Foot Locker or whatever shoe shop, you know, the way they're presented in the shop in the window, like one shoe or whatever. They're not presented like two shoes in a box or on feet. They're presented like this because it's the whole setup, the whole scene that makes it seem so good. If it's an object, also if it's a person, right? So I have, yeah.
Don't stare into the shadow. Don't stare into the abyss.
but yeah, do you see my point? That desire doesn't happen between two people. It happens in society, and you fall in love in a community. But what we haven't got are these things: communities, societies, groups, or whatever, which means it's just a one-on-one thing. You and a pile of CVs. And even if the person says, oh, I like Nirvana, and you also like Nirvana, that's not the same. That's not the same as being in a space where that is experienced as a scene, you know? So it just doesn't really work, right?
No, I mean, look, meeting people organically, the older you get, is harder, mainly because, you know, we've lived lives. You don't want to repeat, you know, big mistakes. And the downside to the double downside to me with dating apps is that it's you're kind of putting all of your fears out there, like, this is what I don't want, this is what I want. But it's still hard to meet someone when you've sat there and constructed a wall, and kind of society says, oh no, that wall is good. It's like, well, you're never really going to meet anybody because you don't know how to meet anybody anymore. You know how to avoid things because everything around you tells you that everything is a red flag. Everything is a quote unquote ick. So that's my fear with the whole AI thing. It's like, okay, we've eliminated all your icks, we've eliminated all your red flags, and we came back, and you should date Jean Bajlan.
He is looking better and better with each Facebook post.
Now, when I cracked open your Jacobin piece, the first thing I thought about was one of the best sci-fi horror series that I've seen since Twilight Zone, and that comes from your neck of the woods. It has now been bastardized by America, but Black Mirror. And there was an episode, I think in their third season, called Nosedive. The episode took place in a world where everyone had a ranking score from 1 to 5, with 5 being the top end of society. Regardless of how good of a person you are is meaningless unless you can interact with people of a higher score. But the higher score people were almost walled off from the lower score people. High scores unlock better housing, employment, and more attractive mates. You mentioned in your piece that this AI assistant format may accidentally recreate this episode, and you mentioned the complicated social credit system in China. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, that was one of the most interesting things I did with like research for my book. So basically, I found this dating app in China, just as when I was like just trying to try as many as possible and see how they all worked. And this one is called Baihei, and it's connected to the Zima credit score, which is Alibaba's credit score. But basically, it works by it's really the same way all our dating apps work, which is what's interesting about it. But it's just basically it's sort of income based and it's credit score based. So it basically says it keeps you dating in your sort of bubble with your whoever's got the most. Whoever's got the most similar income to you or whatever, but it also has these kind of crazy like social credit aspects. Like if any of your friends have been like arrested or anything like that, you lose points on this credit score.
If your friends,
it's crazy in that it's sort of like, I mean, it's really nuts. I mean, in that like but then basically you only get access to the higher band of dates if you comply. Like, so basically the hottest, so say for example you're in an area where there's more women than men, which is common, the hottest women, they enter this kind of like high band, and then you only get access to those hottest women if you have the correct credit score and comply with these like other sort of systems that they rank, right? So that is, I mean, and again, all of Black Mirror, I would say, right, is all of Black Mirror is already happening. That's the only criticism I would have of Black Mirror, which I do think it's a fun show, but like the only criticism I have is it presents it as the dystopian future. But if you just take one episode and just look at one of the examples, you'll find examples of that stuff that already exists.
They do base everything off present technology, by the way.
Yeah, and it really does. That stuff is already sort of happening and like organizing and and sort of stratifying our society and stuff. So I think, yeah, I mean, what's important also about that example is, I mean, and this again, I'll go back to my sort of point about this, you know, everyone was worried that, oh, would these apps be racist? Would they be unfair to women? But the app doesn't care about that stuff. But it sort of does care about class. That's how it thinks. You know, it thinks like a capitalist. You know, it's trying to sort of do the perfect form of commodification to organize society in a way which is much more conducive to the production of profit or whatever. It doesn't care if you're gay or black or a woman. It does care that you should comply with a sort of form of social life that is materially and economically capitalist. So I do think that, you know, yeah, the concerns were misplaced, because where they were hitting us was at the level of class, not at the level of, say, sexuality or race or whatever.
So you're saying that the racism and maybe eugenic features of these apps are not the goal. They're just kind of the accidental, unintended consequences.
Yeah, because they think of race as a class. You know, like a computer thinks of a class, like it's a set, basically. So they just think of like, okay, women and men, that's one way of doing it. You know, different forms of race, that's like, we'll make a list of 10 and then they're in a drop down menu. Then maybe like you could have liberal, conservative, leftist or whatever. That's like, so it thinks of all of these cultural signifiers as just a sort of set. Right. So it doesn't actually sort of conceive of them. But with class, it's a bit different. Like class as the form of stratifying and dividing. That is kind of how it thinks, right?
Interesting.
So it doesn't want to, you know, and of course it's weird. To me, that's really weird, because surely the role of the app is to find what's similar about you and the other person.
Yeah.
But it does so by removing all the differences. So it tries to find someone similar to you by labeling all the things that are different from you, until the only thing left is the one that's a bit not
so basically you're saying that the old saying, go fuck yourself, is going to start being a positive thing. Go fuck. Hey, I'm going to go fuck myself. I found someone just like me.
Well,
Is
yeah,
that what we're aiming for?
I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think, like, I don't know what your relationship history is like, but I'd like to know. But like, do you think do you think that the best relationships are like where the two people involved are like as similar as possible to each other, or do you know, what do you think?
Ooh, you're asking a real fucking question. I would say my first wife and I are such polar opposites that if you put us both in a room, you'd probably be shocked that we managed to produce 3 children. My son's mother and I are similar in that regard. My young son's mother and I are similar in that regard. I had a relationship for a long time with a woman I did music with. The only thing that we really had in common was, I would say, kind of a fearlessness for stupid decisions and kind of the music that we were creating. I don't know if I've ever been attracted to somebody where all interests align. Like there's always going to be somebody you're with where there's something that you align with. Like, you know, you and your wife are both in the same field ish. But that might be it. Maybe you guys like different movies and music and all that other stuff. But there's something about her that you dig. It's not just what you see that you like in her. So it can't just be, oh, you like all the same stuff I like. Because I've you know, recently met someone where we'd like a lot of the same things, but it also has to be something more. And I think that something more is something that I can't try to predict. I have to just experience it. And that's what makes falling in love and being in a relationship so exciting and fun and miserable all at the same time, because you
yeah, I
shouldn't
mean,
be able to
I agree with you. I agree with you. And like, I mean, it's difficult, obviously, to say how would an app help with that stuff, because it's not capable of doing that sort of kind of thinking, right? It's only capable of like, you know, thinking in this quite, as we said, quite sort of straightforward way, which is not how desire works.
And analytical, right? It's only thinking this analytical way, like this makes the most sense for that, right? It's the reason why sports suck to a certain degree, because everyone wants to be so analytical. And if we do this every time, the numbers say that we're going to score every time.
Right. But you always need that sort of bit. The difference is always made by a player who did something unpredictable or whatever. I mean, I'd say that's also what the charm of sports is, right? It's like, because I'm a big soccer person.
Say it with your chest. You're a football fan. It's okay. I get it.
But I think that is right. Like, the fascinating thing is, it's a really interesting analogy I think you've sort of made there, because between dating apps, because like in football, you can actually get all the data, and it's becoming a massive thing in football, like data optimization, sports science, etc., and it does help a team improve, right? But to a certain point, but the difference is generally made by like the unpredictable bit, the talent, the chaos, the whatever, and that's the part that doesn't get predicted or whatever. So it's like dating apps can only help us so far, right? And it is okay, like you said, I think Jason, we can say that we're actually answering this question in a correct way. Actually, we've sort of solved something, which I guess doesn't happen often, but like, it is right, absolutely right. So like you said, of course, why should I want to be matched with people who don't like a black guy or whatever? Of course you wouldn't. You need those basic things in place. So I guess maybe the conclusion is that dating apps have gone as far as it's possible for them to go.
Yeah.
Right, because they can only do this thing, right, which is datify it in a certain way. Okay, fine. Some people want to make sure they don't date a Trump supporter. That's not me. I'd be well up for that. But you know, and I think they're going too far, right? And actually preventing us from, having societies that aren't so filter bubbled, right? Because, you know, it is true. Fine. What's the point going on a date with someone who only likes 5'3" women with big tits? If you're if you're a tall brunette with a flat chest, that's not going to be helpful to you. But we shouldn't take that logic to its extreme and stop actually meeting anyone that has different political views or has a different sense of what their sexuality might be or whatever, because, you know, and this is where, and it sounds crazy to mention, but I was really interested in what's queer theory for a long time, because queer theory, it's like comes before all this identitarian gender politics stuff, and it just basically argues that we're all queer ultimately, and we've all got desires in common ultimately. So I think we should maybe say that dating apps have done everything they can, and should stop at this point and just let them I don't know.
No, look, if you go a little deeper into the sports analogy and the dating analogy, to me, you know, what I've seen in sports is kind of amazing, especially when wearable technology started becoming more popular. So even with things like a football, I don't know what what do you call the football in soccer? What do you call it?
It's ball,
It's called a ball.
Yeah.
So within the ball, I think that there's like technology inside that can see how the arc on the ball goes when you kick it a certain way. When you're trying to make goals, there's technology within goals. When this is all when you're practicing to see how you're hitting it. There's technology that you wear to track your heart rate throughout the game to optimize that. There's a thing in the NFL, the American football, called the combine, which at this point most people don't understand is just for ratings, and it has nothing to do with the analytics of a player, because there is so much wearable technology within the college game that scouts already have all the data that they need from actual game film, and all you're watching is kind of a dog and pony show to keep you engaged and sell more product during the off season for football. And all the analysis that you get of this manufactured dog and pony show is all fake. I shouldn't say fake. It's more, I would say more kayfabe, where I think these guys believe what they're saying and they're former scouts. But really, when you find out that, no one cares about what your 40 time is at the combine, because you in college, they've tracked every game you had against superior competition, and what your off the line speed was, what your speed was in certain routes. Every single thing you did has already been broken down and analyzed before you even got on the combine stage, which is kind of frightening to think about. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you understand how people are going to react to different levels of competition, how they're going to react to getting a lot of money, how they're going to react to moving to a different part of the country, how they're going to react to being in a locker room with grown-ass men that may not like them, how they're going to react to a whole different style of coaching in the NFL. Like all that stuff, we can't predict that. We can try to predict that. It doesn't work. How we don't know if, even though the numbers say that at this point in the game, you're at minute 88, you're exhausted because you played most of the match, but you have your own fifth gear that you just kicked it into and did an insane bicycle kick, as you're dehydrated and cramping, to win the game. And that's why we love sports, because of that magic that happens. And for me, meeting people is the same thing. You hung out with me in real life. I just like people. There's certain things that I think I'm attracted to, but I think I just dig people. And when I get to meet people and hang out with them and talk to them, I can't make assumptions off who someone is based off their job application and resume that they posted online, because I know you're automatically not being 100% honest. When we want a job, what's the first thing we do? We overqualify ourselves, and then we promise what we can do way too much.
I agree. And I think it's a really interesting analogy. And I think, I do think it's really interesting. And I agree with you. It is that kind of thing where there's an element that's art instead of science or data or whatever. It's also funny how people don't like being called queer, but they do like the mirror. The mirror is, you're right. You can't get it on Temu. My wife Helen actually made it with some kids plasticine, like a modeling. But it is a kind of porn mirror, but no, I mean, the queer theory thing, I probably shouldn't have just thrown that in, because I don't agree with all aspects of queer theory or all aspects of psychoanalysis, even though that is my thing. But one thing that's different about this, in the 80s, just very quickly, in the 80s, queer theory was saying that everyone's queer. I mean, including straight rugby players or whatever, right? It's not like, it's just that sexuality is complicated and difficult and riven with failures and stuff. Whereas what's happened now is, it's like, oh, are you one of us with the flag, or are you one of the straight baddies or whatever? Which is a totally different way of thinking about it. And I think with sexuality and with desire, the focus should be, what do we actually have in common, not what do we have different. That was my point, really. Just that. Nothing too crazy. I wasn't accusing everyone of being gay,
being queer. This queer? Was this queer? Well, before we go, I know you have to go. I can't speak for the UK, but I know that there are elite matchmaking services that are not done on apps, but actually done through people, and they kind of make elite people, or they enable elite people to meet each other. And they definitely only match people of a certain income and social class. These are designed for the truly 1%. That being said, how do you believe these apps are using, or these apps using AI will be worse than this current era of young people that seem to be running backwards in time from trad wives, I believe you young people call them, which has been my new fascination online. I love watching ridiculous people make really simple things very difficult. And then also high value men or women. I don't know how deep you've fallen into the manosphere, but listening to these young people talk about being a high value man or high value woman has been fascinating, because it seems to me that I see people running kind of backwards to more quote unquote traditional values, or what they assume are traditional values.
Absolutely, I think that's a great, really important question. And you know, when I was doing the book, I was also doing this thing about looking into certain groups. One of them I looked at was like, I think it's called Women Go Their Own Way, something like W, the acronym for that or whatever, which is one of these like trad wives groups, and also this, what do you call it? SMV, sexual market value, like so, Chan boards and image boards and sites which are based on like, you know, working out the SMV of each person, whatever. But there's lots interesting about that, because on the one hand, that's kind of what the apps are already doing. But the retreat to traditionalism, you know, I think that is really fascinating, and I think it's because, and not everyone will like this, obviously, and I think that things now in raw capitalism are even worse than the traditionalism that they sort of broke from. So we've been sort of sold a story about how imprisoning traditions were, and of course they were. There's certain aspects of traditional thinking, like certain aspects of culture which are elitist or patriarchal, whatever you might want to think, racist, all that. It was definitely the case, and so of course we wanted to get rid of that stuff, but what we've been offered in its place is just raw capitalism. It's even worse. And that's actually what Marx said in, you know, very basic stuff in the Communist Manifesto, the most simple Marx text, where he basically says what's happened is that the bourgeoisie have destroyed all traditions. And people, you know, it's interesting because Marx he's not traditional, he's not pro traditions, and he's not pro the bourgeoisie. But he's just describing what's happened, that first you've got traditions, then you've got raw capitalism. And that's the stage we're in now. So although I don't want to retreat into traditionalism myself, I know you don't, and I know that our communities don't, you know, we want to try and be progressive if we can, but I do totally understand that symptom. And I don't think, that's why I've got more empathy for Trump voters than a lot of people have, because I totally understand that people would feel, hang on, we can't allow this to happen. We can't allow our traditions and communities to be sort of torn asunder and replaced by just completely horrendous raw capitalism. There has to be something else there. And that, I guess, is, you know, I mean, it's a big question, but it's the job of any kind of left or socialism or communism to build, rather than just saying, look, it's progress, we're getting rid of the bad traditions, which is just not right.
We're failing in that regard, because look, if you took all of the views from all of the shows in the left sphere and compare them to one of the shows or programs about a trad wife or someone talking about high value men or women, it would pale in comparison. That's
in
where a lot of
sort of popularity, or
that's where eyeballs are. That's, you know, people kind of like where we started this off. As our life becomes more precarious, you know, it does become a little harder to even think about finding a mate, because maybe we might not feel worthy to even find a mate, because we might not be where we want to be, like you said before about like life goals.
You know, I think that's a really interesting point. I mean, I mean, you sort of made 2 points, but last night we watched that Alex Jones documentary, The Truth versus Alex Jones. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not. No, you watched it with your wife?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Was it research? Was it research? I'm hoping you two are doing research for something together, and it wasn't like,
it's
hey,
a great example of what you said, because obviously the stuff that Alex Jones is spouting is that, do we think he's a good guy? Of course we don't. It's completely terrible. But the ethos of the documentary is, you know, he is sort of stopping, you know, society. He's absolutely evil, and he's stopping society from being able to progress or whatever. But as you said, if you this documentary, it's really, of course, as you'd expect, complete liberal, anti Alex Jones, and it's on Now TV, I think, or whatever. I don't know what that is over there, but you know, the 10% of people who watch that are going to think, yeah, he's a horrible fascist liar, but that's not what the general public thinks. If you showed that to a random sample of people, they would say, no, actually, they would rather watch InfoWars, you know. So it just doesn't work, this kind of way of thinking. But yeah, as to your other point, you know, yeah, of course, it's like that. You know, people do feel that they're not worthy of going on a date or whatever. Like they have to lie on their CV, etc., etc. And that's only going to get worse, whereas I know it sounds crazy, and again, I'm being traditionalist myself, whatever, but even if you were like the bin man collecting the garbage in a community, in a small town or whatever, where every morning you say hello to everyone or whatever, you get your wage, you maybe go to the same place for lunch or a cafe or whatever, you can be more proud of that in some ways than you can of being a podcaster, no offense to us or whatever.
But doesn't that play into that main character syndrome where everybody needs to be Anthony Bourdain, right? Everyone has to be the most interesting man in the world. Exactly. And if to your point, the bin man works for the city.
Yeah.
He's got benefit, or she has benefits and a pension, probably a union. These are all good things.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, but I do think it's changing.
They're not cool. Are they eating the duck fat fries at noon?
But I think maybe it's changing a bit. Like if you ask the question, what do women want? When we were becoming adults, probably they would have found an unemployed artist way more appealing than a bin man. Yes. But I'm not actually sure anymore whether that's the case, because things have got so bad. You actually need somebody to
living here in Mexico, young women definitely like the bin man. The bin man can be like 50 years old and knee deep in 20-year-olds. Because it's so glaring. The class differences here are so glaring. It's like, oh, you have a way out of this, multi-family home I'm living in, or multi-generational home I'm living in.
But that's just to sort of maybe I guess bring things full circle. The reason why part of the reason why that's happening is precarious people and creatives is the same group. So what's happening ultimately is AI is taking our jobs, and factories are, this is not a new thing, machines are taking people's jobs, whether that's 3.5 million self-driving truck drivers or whatever, or whether that's you haven't got your teaching job anymore, so you're doing more Patreon work. And so everyone becomes a creative in their spare time, and there are more and more of the jobs are actually done by AI. Right. So this like fact that, I don't know, the fact that the AI is now the dating app or the matchmaker is just one of many ways in which so the only thing you can do is the creative work, whereas it used to be like the freelancers and creatives had turned down the offers of the boring 9-to-5 in order to pursue their interests. Now there is no boring 9 to 5. You just have to be a creative. You have to be a sort of startup, self-serving person or whatever. So I don't know. It all seems to be the same process to me. It's the same shift in economics that's underlying all of this discussion and what relationships are and what work is and what precarity is. It's all to do with the same core cause, which is this kind of decline in opportunities and material conditions and economics. And that's why I think that you have to approach it.
And I think that's something we should focus on when we even think about this kind of stuff. And I don't know if we focus on that as much as we focus on our fear of Terminator 2 coming to life and Skynet's going to take over the world with the robots. And I don't think Skynet's going to take over the world with the robots. I think we're just going to be, I think it's going to be more Demolition Man than Terminator.
Exactly. You can all be, everyone's a podcaster and has a Patreon. That's the end of the world.
Oh, Jesus. Wow. What a shitty world. Like, how do you rebel in that world? You read a book. You just fucking read a book.
You become a bin man and have you become a bin man and you're knee deep in 20-year-olds, as you put it. That's the rebellion.
It is a very odd thing experience. Like, I'm really old. They're like, that's okay. I'm like, it's not okay for me. Sorry, I'm not Leo DiCaprio. I know it's late for you, Alfie. I don't want to keep you. You stayed longer than you told me you could stay, and I appreciate that, brother. Wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there are links in the descriptions to Alfie's article. No, we don't need AI to go on dates for us. Is there anything else you are working on before we go? Before you go?
Oh no, I mean no. I mean, I'll be hopefully writing more stuff about it, and it's been really fun to chat. It's always fun I really like the way you guys do this is revolution. I just find it fun, and I'll be listening into the call in, and I've had a great time.
And you want to hear some of the calls? Yeah, I should. You know, hey, you guys want dating advice? Definitely call in, and I'll tell you exactly how to fuck up on all kinds of dates because I have experience. Yeah, I have experience. So thank you, Alfie, so much. Tell the missus I said hello, and I look forward to meeting her in real life. Peace out, bro.
Yeah. See you soon. Thanks, everyone.
I have the number on the screen. I have not turned the phone on because I have to go to turn the phone on because I don't want you guys listening to the password, and then you're gonna break into the phone thing, and then it's chaos. We can't have this level of chaos. But seriously, the phone number is on the screen. Area code 510-319-1899. Give me 1 second while I turn the phone on. I'll call into the service. Look, I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up right now so you guys can hear. Call in studio. Bam. Call in studio. And I want to hear what you guys have to say about this show. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about dating. Mac and I tried to do this before, and you guys all wussed out, totally wussed out. I was like, call in and tell us about some of the worst dates you've had. And in the champagne room, I told literally the most embarrassing story ever about the worst, absolute worst date I've ever had and ever will have. And you guys didn't even call in. So you got to call in now. So give me 1 second. I will, I'll do you guys a favor and I'll even play AI music. This genre says it's called minimal house. Let's see what it sounds like. This is the program we use generates music for us. Can you hear that? So listen to the minimal house for less than 2 minutes while I call into the call-in studio. Thank AI for these lovely sounds. This sounds like a club filled with attractive women that would never call me back. Hold on. All right. Area code 510-319-1899. That is area code 510-319-1899. Lady Braga says, did you throw up on someone's Chuck Taylors? No, I don't drink. As you found out in DC, I don't drink, so I didn't throw up on anybody's anything. It did involve fluids. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to tell this story on the main show. I have family members that are not patrons that do watch the main show. I can't go to a family function and they look at me a weird way if I tell that story. So I can't tell that story. Can I tell other horrible dating stories? I don't know. I've had some horrible dates. I've had some great dates as well. There was a moment in my life when I was a little younger where I was killing it. Preston John says we need some South African house music. If this AI enabled me to have South African house music, I would totally click that. I have no idea what the fuck that sounds like, but it probably sounds better than what we're listening to now. I feel very confident that it sounds better than what we're listening to now. But this music now sounds like perfect music as you're waiting for people to call in and not be scared. Look, it's anonymous. You don't have to say who you are. You can just say, this is Frank. I've got a dating question. What is it like for you guys dating with dating apps? Yes, Lady Braga says it's also embarrassing. We all have horror stories. That's the thing. Everyone has dating horror stories. I want to hear your dating horror stories. They don't have to be as bad as my horror story that I told in the campaign. But, you know, I'm sure we just, you know, let's hear them. Oh, finally, someone with courage that I hope this is the domino that falls. And you guys call in. Calling from a 559 area code. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from? Hello.
Oh, this is Derek, and I'm calling about a dating story.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's go. I'm excited. Uh-oh. Can't hear you.
Oh, can you guys hear me all right?
I can hear you now, and then if you were talking, I didn't hear anything unless you were trying to mute yourself. That doesn't work when you're telling the story. Let's hear this.
How about now?
Now I can hear you just fine. Let's hear. I want to hear your dating nightmare story.
Oh boy. So the worst date I've ever been on, it was actually a setup years ago. And in my defense, the last show, I couldn't remember it until all of a sudden, about a month later, it popped into my head. And I thought I probably tried to block out. Anyhow, the girl couldn't have been any more disinterested. That was probably the most awkward I've ever been, or that's ever been. You would ask her stuff. Hey, talk about yourself. Just one word answers. Look, completely. I actually went to the bathroom for a bit because I'm like, I'm getting out. I'm just going to tell her I got to go. And she was probably going to do that too, but I beat her to it. And I just, nope, yep. And the funniest part about that was when we're walking out, I'm not completely interested in like touching her or anything corresponding. We park next to each other in the parking lot. And she, oh, this is your car. When it's this old pickup truck. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is me. And I didn't even give a shit. And like, we actually had a more engaging conversation afterwards. And I just didn't even care. So, and just, that was that. I told the friend that set me up with her, dude, what the hell? And she was like, well, it's weird, but she thought, well, look, hey, maybe they'll hit it off. But yeah, I didn't tell her. I mean, I just like, look, it was just all kinds of, I called her afterwards. It was all like, yeah, anyhow, so that was terrible.
Do you feel that if you're the weird friend in your friend group, then your friends will try to hook you up with the strangest person they've ever met?
Yes. It's almost like, in fact, it's a good thing you mentioned that, because it's almost kind of like, well, he seems pretty open-minded. He'll kind of go out with anybody. And well, while that is semi-true, you got to kind of respect, like, you know, who I am, at least as a person. And there are limits. I mean, because I told a number of people, look, I will go out and give anybody a shot. I'm an equal opportunity employer, you know, or just a dater or whatever you want to call it. But just like, look, I have my limits. And if you don't know those, having like interacted with me as long as they did, then don't set me up, because I'm pretty clear, you know, when it comes to that. But yeah, nah, that's the, hey, go give them a shot. And well, again, that's kind of true. But on the other hand, yeah. So
is it like, have you ever seen the movie Better Off Dead with John Cusack?
Yes.
Is it like the scene in that movie where the dad sets him up with his law partner's daughter? She's got the braces. He doesn't want to go out with her, but he thinks because he's so cool, she's going to dig him. And he meets her, and she's like, look, I don't want to do this. let's just get it over with. But if you really want to get it over with, if you pay me this much money, which is what the date would have cost, then you can go about your evening, because I don't want to go out with you either. Did it feel like that?
Yeah, kind of. And I mean, the only difference that I do is like, look, I will give you an honest shot. How I think it's actually funny. The one that I met with, I think that was just her attitude. I've never in a million years like treated anybody like that. Like, even if I'm like either, well, this or well, that, and I say, oh no, come on. You know, it's getting out, it's giving somebody a chance, because look, you literally just never know. And yeah, but look, that's why we could have hit it off. You just never know. But that it wasn't that day. So
maybe in another life, your friends were like,
another.
Your friends
country,
were like,
right?
Your friends were like, oh, dude, you like Star Trek. She likes Star Trek. It'll be great. Was it like that?
And then
you're like, no, man, I only like the original Star Trek. This is a next generation chick, man. I don't fuck with Picard. Are you like that?
I know what you mean, but just I'll give anybody a chance, but then it's just kind of like it just see where it goes. And I mean, then it depends on how hard you cling to that, because while I do, full disclosure, I do happen to be a Star Trek fan. I am not the Star Trek fan I thought I was, and I discovered that when I actually went to a convention one time years ago, and I thought, wow, okay, so I got a couple of ornaments. I even have a Leonard Nimoy standee, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm doing good. I got the whole video set. No.
Yeah, you thought you were going to
be.
You thought you were going to be knee deep in Star Trek pussy, and then you were like, "I'm not ready for this," or "Am I prepared?" Or, or the fan I thought I was.
And then right, yeah. Well, and it's to kind of tie that into what you guys were talking about today. You can't let that limit you as to who you go out with, who you see, and what you're trying to experience. Because look, I'm still alive. I didn't lose any appendages, and I mean, I could be a little bit more, but we'll save that for the champagne room off air or something. But you know what I'm saying. So, like, we lived to fight another day. It was an experience, and what the hell? So, hey, that either wasn't your scene, that wasn't your day, and come back again, try again if you want to, or just go somewhere else.
I'm a go somewhere else kind of guy, but let's see what's going on over there.
Yeah,
but
I don't beat my head against the wall either.
Don't. It's definitely not fucking worth it. But thank you so much for the call, Derek. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching the show, and have a good rest of your weekend.
Absolutely, you guys too. Take
care. Come on. You people have to have some bad dating stories out there. I want to hear them. Kush, look, you should call in. I'm sure you have some horrible dating stories with some creepy old dudes. I know you have some horrible dating stories. I don't date as much now that I live out here in Mexico. That's been very difficult for me to do. And mainly there's the language thing. And then I live in like a retirement community, and there's that. I don't know if I'm ready to shut it down that hard yet. But I want to hear it. Oh, there's another call. I hope this is Kushla calling in to tell me about some, weird old man. So let's see. Calling from a 651 area code. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Mariana.
How are you?
Sorry? Sorry. I zoned out for a second.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, dog?
I can hear you. I can hear your dog a little bit.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just wearing earbuds. I'm not sure just fucking it up. So is my voice clear enough?
Your voice is clear enough. I can understand you.
Okay. So actually, I feel probably because I haven't tried dating that much, but I've only went on dates with like 7 people, like some online dating and such. And I actually don't have any bad stories, but I feel like it's still such an unpleasant experience generally.
Oh no! Now you're getting a little muffled.
And okay, one sec. Let me try something else.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Because I want to hear what you're saying. I heard you say that you've only been on 7 dates, and then it started to get muffled. This is
Okay,
interesting.
what's up now?
You're a little clearer now. So you said you've only been on 7 dates and you've tried online dating, and what else?
Yeah, and I just feel like people who date in general have such limited expectations, and it's like no one wants to be there. So I feel like it's just difficult because it really limits how excited people can be going into
Mm-hmm.
dating. There's like whatever at this point. Like hopefully it's not horrible. And when I talk to people, it's like they seem like nice people. I get along with them in conversations, but it's just this almost like, what's the point? I'm just doing this because I guess I'm supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess I kind of felt that way too. I enjoy talking to people, but I was like, this feels like pointless. And just like not people not contacting me back is pretty normal, and it's somewhat frustrating because I feel like communication's so bad as a default with like digital stuff. You
Mm-hmm.
message someone. I'm not saying I need anything right away, but it's just like indefinitely. It's like, okay, should I? Are they ever gonna say anything? Or so I think that's kind of frustrating. People are just like, oh, ghosting is normal, or not contacting someone back is normal. It's completely fine. And I'm like, it's a little rude, in my opinion.
It's very rude. I want to ask you.
Like,
So
just like you can say,
Mhm.
I'm not interested, or like that was a good time, but I just don't want to. Versus like, oh, I'm gonna pretend you don't exist. By the way.
okay, and okay. There's so many questions I have that I'm scared to ask. So
All right.
when you go out, and you said you've only been out a limited amount of times, that one of the problems that you have is that
Yeah.
you're not getting in the follow up. And you're young. You're like in your 20s.
I'm 26.
You're the same age as my kids. So you're my kid's age. So,
Yeah.
so you'll have to take everything I say with a massive grain of salt, because I'm a dad 24/7 of a young woman the same age as you, who I just saw. I hung out with this past week. Um, are you dating young men?
Yeah, like say same age or uh maybe within a few years younger, older. Actually tends to be younger because I feel like I just more of them would match with me, I guess. Um, but yeah.
That's weird. So I will say this: young men in their 20s, the worst. This is the worst moment of their lives, and they're extremely shallow and self-centered. There's that. First of all, that's rough. Um, do you find it hard to connect with people when you go out?
Yeah, but also part of that's I'm very autistic.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when I interact with a lot of people, especially men, they expect you to like flatter them. And I'm just trying to talk to someone as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's difficult because like, why aren't they laughing at my jokes? I'm like, because they're not funny. I don't know. Like, it's not a rude thing. It's just like I feel that there's a lot of expectations for dates that I just don't tend to match up to. So then there's this like, I don't know. You know, you can't make anyone feel a different way, but I think there's like a certain rudeness almost that like certain expectations weren't made, and I'm kind of like, if nothing from what I saw really went wrong, and then you just like, I'm like, hey, I had a nice time meeting you, have a good day, and you're just like, okay, never hear from them again. Like, all right, sorry, I guess, not really, but
Are you meeting people at, because you're the young lady that listens to heavy music, correct? Young person.
yeah, yep,
Are you meeting people in at shows?
um, yeah. I mean, I talk to a lot of people at shows.
And no dudes are trying to take you out, or are you missing some of the cues that might be like, this guy likes you and would like to take you out because he sees that you're wearing a Converge shirt?
I don't think generally anyone's interested in me, but I'm also like notoriously oblivious, so I don't know.
That could be your biggest problem right there. As someone that has been male in alternative music scenes for the majority of my life, they usually are places that don't have a lot of women in them. So any single woman
Yeah,
in that
only
scene, there would just be dudes on you like flies to poop. So I'm surprised they're not just swarming around you at all times.
yeah, I feel like one of the things too though is I'm discouraged from that because like dating within a scene like where everyone knows each other is kind of I've seen it go wrong like a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
after.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, that seems inconvenient and annoying at best. But
I mean,
that's also like where you meet people.
it could definitely turn into Melrose Place. Like, I get that. It could turn to Melrose Place real quick. And that's a term you probably don't know, and I'm fine with that. Because I'm old and I'm going to say old things. But I refuse to look. I'm going to the Midwest around my birthday. And I think we should go to a show, and I will point out to you the young dudes that like you. Because I know for a fact. We're friends on Instagram. I know what you look like. So I know for a fact there's dudes that are liking you. You know what? I think they're probably intimidated too.
Okay. I'm like, all right, noted.
Something to keep in mind.
Well, then that's like,
But we'll look. I'm making you this promise. We'll meet up. We'll go to a show, and I will be your virtual matchmaker. I'll be your AI matchmaker.
okay.
I don't know if that's a good thing for you, because again, I am a dad. That young man.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, I didn't hear you.
It doesn't even piss me. Yeah, I can hear you. It doesn't even piss me off so much as I'm like, am I missing something or is it accurate? Because like I literally don't know because I don't really pay attention.
I think you might. I think there's probably at least. I feel very confident. There's probably 15 dudes that are probably talking about you right now, and you have no idea. I believe that in my soul.
All right.
Trust me on this.
Okay.
Well, there's a few things you can trust me on. Trust me that you are an interesting, attractive young person that has some pretty awesome musical tastes. That there's some dudes out there that can't wait.
Well, that part's true.
there's some people out there that cannot wait to talk to you, and they're probably like so intimidated, like, oh my god, like she's so hot and she knows all the cool bands, and I don't know what to say to her. I'm just gonna be a dork. Like, trust me.
I don't know. I feel weird about it, but then I'm like, yo, my music tastes so good, it can make it for a lot, I guess.
You'd be surprised. You would be so surprised. So keep that in mind. I'm going to try my damnedest to do my matchmaking in the Midwest, and we'll make this happen. And then, bam, you'll find your love connection at the next. Who's on tour right now? I don't know. We'll find out who's on tour, and hopefully we can go to that show, and then bam, instant connection.
I was cracking up. Well, thank you.
All right.
For the motivation and perspective.
You have a very good rest of your weekend, and I look forward to hearing seeing some of your music rants. So take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Later.
Bye. It's hard being young and awkward. Oof. I was young and awkward, and I just got married. That's not smart. Don't do that. Also, why are you laughing? We have another phone call. I'm loving this. Calling from a 412 area code caller. What is your name and where are you calling from?
Yo, my name is Nate. I'm from Pittsburgh.
Oh, hell yeah. What's going on, Nate?
Not much, man. Just watching the show, listening to the topic, and just, I guess, wanted to throw my 2 cents into things.
All right, Nate, you want to talk about modern dating? I hate modern dating. Tell me what you dig or not dig about modern dating.
You know, the girl who was just on with her story made me think about like some recent dates that I've been on. And I found myself like maybe projecting too much onto the other person and thinking like I was always worried about me being an asshole. And it kind of like, it freezes you up from moving forward with people. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's a part of like the like social media age that we're in. Like everybody's like more concerned about how they're coming off and like treating other people, or if that's just maybe a personal issue with myself. But like the last few dates I've been on, that's exactly what kind of stopped it, because my self-esteem is like, oh, I don't want to be a dick to this person. I feel like everything I'm doing is wrong.
I'll say this about projection, Nate, and I've done it enough times to keep me single. But the weird thing about the social media age, and this is just my opinion, is that we're kind of left with these images of people in their best light. And we might meet with them and we might even go out on a real date. And then we're imagining everything else after that. For better or for worse, we're imagining what we can do wrong. We're imagining potential red flags, even on our end, because we might not want to fuck it up. And I feel like social media creates this whole don't fuck it up. Everything is red flags. Everything is what you're doing wrong. Everything is, someone else is this kind of narcissist, and all this other bullshit. So I feel you on that because it causes extreme anxiety. And you also have like unlimited options.
Well, and
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and you have all these options. You like it causes anxiety, and then there's like kind of a counter to that. Like maybe this person isn't good enough, so you have this kind of feedback loop of like, I'm being an asshole for judging this person for not being good enough, and then realizing like, oh, maybe I'm being a jerk for being this judgmental, and it's like this weird feedback loop. At least I find myself in of like, I'm not treating this person right, and also they're not good enough because there's so much, you have so much like on display for you. If you do well on dating apps, then you have like a smorgasbord of options. If you're okay with sitting at home and just watching porn all day, then you have that biological compulsion relieved, get that dopamine hit. Like in either case, it's just like, I don't know. The internet has just made this like whole thing so like complicated because of how boring it's made everything.
That this is my opinion on the downside to both of those things. First of all, you can assassinate your meat all day long, right? You could beat the shit out of it. You could mommy dearest your fucking meat to death. That is a thing, right? The most watched clip we have on this channel is Norm Finkelstein talking about gooning. So sadly, it's a reality. And I don't know if it's that you're good at dating apps or if you're just always on there and you're constantly going out. But I will say, if you're constantly going out, it is now like Vegas for you, where you're never going to sit down and try to really get to know anybody, because that slot machine is turning on the app and watching it go. Who's coming up now? Oh, this person liked me. Great. I'm going to go on a date with this person on Tuesday. You're going to go. I want to get my whole fucking calendar done. I'm just going to date. But it's really hard to get to know people, because in the back of your mind, you're like, hey, I don't know what's on the other side of that app. And that can become addicting.
Right.
That's why I just got rid of the whole thing, dude. I was like, this isn't cool. I'm meeting people and maybe I'm fucking people off right away because I want to see what's on the other end of the app. They're doing the same thing to me. I had met someone that I really dug, and I met their kid, and we really all hit it off, and then they just ghosted me. I think I did that. I did that to someone else that I actually really did like. So that anxiety that these things bring about, it's really horrible for trying to meet people. And then depending on your age, it can be hard to meet people in public spaces, because maybe you don't get out in public that much because of your job or whatever the situation may be. And I do feel there's an awkwardness to young people when you talk to them in person, especially in the States.
Yeah, well, and just to add another like complicated layer to that, if you're not good at taking pictures of yourself, or maybe you're just not like a stunner, dating apps are an absolute like meat grinder for your self-esteem, which in person is probably just as bad because of that, if not made worse, because it's just a constant reminder that, hey, like, no one's choosing you. Even if it would just peter out into nothing, if you're not getting any likes, it's a, the mind will make up a story as to why that's like you're not getting any attention. It's just like there's so many layers of just how, I don't know, all these problems.
Oh, dude, I took dating apps. By the time I came down to Mexico, I definitely gave a big middle finger to dating apps and didn't take it very seriously. And I believe my profile picture, there was a picture of me, and then the next pictures were like, it was a picture of Pee Wee Herman and Clarence Thomas. And then it was a picture of like Pee Wee Herman at Cher with the caption that said, I want someone to look at me like Pee Wee looks at Cher. So I didn't know what I was going to attract with that. And I attracted a few people. It was interesting to say the least. But after a while, I was like, I don't think I'm going to ever meet anybody, because I can't take this shit seriously, because to me, it's just hot or not. Someone's looking at my picture, and like you said, if it doesn't look the way it's supposed to look, then I'm not going to get anybody getting back to me. I don't have the fancy shit. I don't have a picture of me at the gym. I don't have a weird old man selfie where the camera's hella close in my face with a Bluetooth on in my car. I don't have a picture of me on a mountain choking out a tiger or anything. So I don't know what to offer you other than...
You don't have the fish pic?
No,
you don't have like
no.
The bluefin tuna?
Nah, I don't have a picture of just my feet on the fucking beach, even though I do live by the beach. That shit's kind of lame to me. And every time I tried to make shit interesting, I was like, the pictures that I like of myself are of ones where I'm playing a show. And because I think that's me in the right, like that's me in the raw, but I don't want to put a picture of me playing a show A, I don't play shows anymore, and B, that's an aspect of my life, but that's not all of me. So I don't think there's proper representation, and just from that standpoint alone, I couldn't really get on board fully with the dating app community. So you're going to meet people that aren't going to take you that seriously as well, right? But I'm still
it gets tiresome judging everyone and feeling judged at the same time. Like that causes a burnout too. Like I'm just like I'm sick of feeling judged and I'm sick of judging others, because think about how if you're if you're not trying to just swipe on like the hottest girls or guys, your brain has to be registering that judgment that you're kind of going through, like no, 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 no. And I don't know.
Dude,
it causes just another type of burnout,
right? Because you're putting your parameters of what you're looking for, and in those parameters, you're going to be missing out on other things and other people. And my big parameters for a long time still is age. Someone said Jason is 5'10". I am 5'10", so take that. So dude, I'm a huge proponent of trying to meet people in the real world. It's fucking difficult. I think it's more difficult than dating apps, but it's more real. You can have a conversation with someone. I just like talking to people. I go to cafes and just sit and write, and if people sit next to me or around me, I talk to them. Ask Ben Burgess, he'll tell you. Bert Cooper hates it that I talk to everybody around me, but I find people interesting, and that to me is a better way to meet people organically than trying to find a match. Because you know what you can find on a dating app? You can find someone that might fuck you. That's what you're gonna find.
Yeah.
And
right. Absolutely.
I say this as someone that actually knows the drummer of my band was on a dating app for a very short time and met his girlfriend of 7 years now. It'll be 7 years in October. And they met on Tinder. I met my son's mom on Tinder, but of course we're not together, but we have a kid. You can meet people, I guess, but it's so difficult, dude. Everyone's trying to do the same thing, and just, I don't know, you're better off going to a bar. Are you old enough to drink?
Yes, but like you, I do not partake.
I don't drink either. And maybe it's creepy that a non-drinking person's at a bar, but it's like, I want to meet adult women. I can't hang out at the fucking Jamba Juice.
If you go with friends, it's easier. Yeah. You can be like, oh, I'm at the DD. You know what I mean?
You should come to Mexico and hang out with us at the cool punk metal bar in TJ.
I will definitely keep that invitation in mind. I would love to. That'd be great.
That's where
I'm like punk metal scene kid myself. So.
Look, that's where you're gonna meet Miss Wright. Miss Wright is at that bar. She's probably there right now. The fucking bar opens up at 10 and closes at 6 a.m. She's there right now, waiting for you. So come to TJ.
You know what's funny? Like when I was younger, that was always my dream, to go down to Mexico or out west. And I don't know, like start a life out there. Like when I was young, that was seriously like, oh, I'm gonna move out west to the desert or whatever, and that's where like I'm gonna build my like adult life. And then the real life happened.
Well, look, don't move here and raise my rent, but you're more than welcome to come down. I'm being totally fucking serious. Come down to TJ. We'll go to the fucking bar. And I guarantee you'll meet someone. It may not be love forever. It may not even be love for that night, but you will meet cool people at this bar. I promise you that. You will at least have fun and meet cool people at the bar.
Well, yeah, dude, that invitation, thanks. I appreciate it.
I'm being honest. As long as I'm here. I mean, you can come down here if I'm not here. But that bar is one of the most fun places. But It's one of the most fun places. I'm going there today with my good friend Ben Burgess as we're going to take a trip down to TJ to get some stuff. But Nate, keep your head up. I believe in you. Get off the dating apps.
Thanks, Jay.
Come to TJ. We got you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All
Keep up all the content. I love it.
Thank you. Peace. I'm serious, guys. I'm so damn serious. That bar is so much fun. I was there last week, 2 weeks ago. It was last week. I was in Washington. Whatever I was there before I left. I was actually there with the date. And they were playing like classic rock. You never know what's it's going to be rock and heavy music, sometimes gothy stuff. But they were playing like a lot of classic stuff, and they were playing LA Woman, and we were all just singing along to LA Woman. It was so much fun. So any place like that where you can just rock out with a bunch of bikers in there, there's young kids with all these crazy metal shirts. It's such a dope little scene. There's really good food. I'm telling you, come down. You'll have a good time. It'll change your whole mindset, because there's nothing more fucking depressing than being on a dating app. You're swiping forever. You're not getting any matches. You feel you change your pictures. You feel fat in all of them. Did you go hang out at the bar and we're all singing along to some fucking song that you haven't heard in forever? You get to request what you want and you can belt it out of the top of your lungs. So much fun. It'll change your whole mind. It'll be a nice little reset. And then I'll be there with you fucking trying to hook you up with everybody. Dusty says, I want to be Jason for like a fortnight. You don't want this, Dusty. You don't want this. All right, this will be the last call because I do have to get ready to go because Ben only has a limited amount of time and we will be taking the bus. And that's another thing, Nate. We're taking public transportation down there. You are with the people, brother. We're not driving down there. We're not paying to park. Fuck that noise. We're paying $22.50 pesos to take the bus, which is literally a van. And they drive that shit so crazy. We're going to have a fucking blast. All right. Last call of the day. I'm excited about this call. Calling from a 917. I think that's New York. Calling from a 917 area code. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Anthony. It is a New York area code. It's my work phone. I'm out of Chicagoland area.
Oh shit! I'll be in Chicago on my birthday, August 19th.
Oh, sweet. What are you doing up here?
The DNC. I'll be at the DNC with Doug Lane and Sublation Media.
Oh, sweet.
Is it?
Yeah, sorry, I'm nervous.
Don't be Anthony. Don't be nervous. This is just me. I'm like the easiest dude to talk to. This is just Jay. You're talking to Jay at a bar or something right now. What's going on? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? A horrible dating experience or online dating? What is it, Anthony, that's got you pissed off?
Yeah, so I guess recently I've just went on like a number of dates with a girl, and that was going pretty well. We did meet on an app, but it didn't end up working out, and I was kind of giving up. She actually, like, I work in the loop in Chicago, and I live out in the suburbs, so I commute. She lives out here. Before that, I was trying to go on dates with people in the city, and I couldn't do that anymore. It's too exhausting. And I pretty much like, no, I'm not going to meet anybody out here. Like, so I'm just kind of giving up. I'm spread pretty thin though. I work like full time in the trades, and then we do like I'm an apprentice, so we take classes too.
Mhm.
So I'm just kind of giving up with it, but yeah, I don't know. It's just it's pretty hard, I guess. Like along with that, like I feel like even the people I meet and match up with and would get along with, we're not going to have like schedules that work out and kind of stuff like that. So I think there's just other things that make all this like harder than it needs to be as well.
Do you
And
get
then like I
okay?
think
Go
that
ahead.
I think that
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that ties into like meeting people in real life. It's like if you're all occupying, a physical space together, you have like these same windows of time. It's kind of easier that way if you actually can meet someone.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Look, it's hard to meet people when you're a busy person, right? And you say you work in the trades, so you probably work crazy hours. But that shouldn't be the thing that stops you from trying. That's the thing people use as a great excuse. And I have met people like that where they're like, you don't have enough time for me, or blah, 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 blah. You seem like a busy person. Because I am a busy person, right? I do this show full time, which means I'm constantly trying to figure out stuff. I'm booking guests, I'm reading books, I'm writing stuff, I'm editing video. You're doing something similar, right? You're constantly at work, you have a long ass commute. The last thing you want to do is come home, shower, try to figure out what you're going to wear. That's going to take another fucking hour and a half. Agree on somewhere to meet, then go back into the city to meet someone that's like, I'm not going to the suburbs. That's too far. I don't talk to dudes in the suburbs. Yada, 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 yada. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
I have heard that. I get that. That's not the end all be all. And I'll be honest with you. I did meet somebody, and this person came to my home. I've never done this in my life, Anthony. First date, first physical date, this person flew in and hung out at my house for a while. They were here for a while. And then the day they left, I had to leave for some work stuff. And then I had to stay gone for about a week for some family stuff. And I was so preoccupied with work and family stuff. We were still communicating via like text, but I didn't call this person. And I didn't realize how kind of fucked up that was, because I was so kind of caught up in the world of me, because I live in a world of me. I live alone. So, I don't have to fucking care about someone's feelings. That's shit with the door open, right? But
yeah,
I was reminded, as I finally have talked to this person on the phone, we've reconnected, that while they understood to a certain degree, it's still pretty fucked up. And I again, so oblivious, so narcissistic that I kind of forgot to do something as simple as just call, not to check in, but just be like, hey, what's up? It's crazy hectic right here, but we'll talk when I get back. Even saying that would have been huge. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
things haven't blown up. They're not all shit, but you can work through that shit. Don't look at that as a hindrance on you meeting someone. The busyness of your life. It's just what it's just going to be one of the things that they're going to have to like about you, right? That's all that is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
Don't, and because I was like that for a long, like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm too this, I'm not enough of this, and it's like, nah, just don't be a douche, and fucking learn how to use a phone. That's all you have to do.
That's true.
I want you to succeed. I want you to call back and be like, hey, you know what? I threw caution to the wind, And like you, I did some goofy shit. And I met a real cool person. That's
yeah.
another.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe if I come around, I could show you a message on Instagram or something.
Hey, please. I'm being serious. Please, I'll be in Chicago for I think like 3 or 4 days. So please shoot me a message. You know, I'll be hanging out with.
I have messaged you before on I'm Stupid Idiot Moron on there. I messaged you a few weeks ago.
On Instagram?
Yeah.
Message me again. Message me again so we can meet up in Chicago. I'm serious. Let's fucking hang out. And we'll go to some bar and we'll play matchmaker at the bar. It'll be fun. It'll be a bunch of us. We'll fucking hang out with Kenzo and Cedric. we'll fucking play matchmaker. You're gonna be our project for the night.
That sounds good.
Anthony, thank you for the call. Remember, caution to the wind. Don't be afraid to take risks. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.
I have to stop taking risks because eventually it's going to come up and bite me in the ass. But, you know, sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone, right? Would you guys agree? Charles goes, come visit. I shoot with the door open. Midi Doctor says, not sure Myles is a go-to for relationship advice, to be honest. Hey, I'm very open about putting on air all the mistakes that I have made. So you guys don't make them, right? And the mistakes that I constantly make. Ben says when getting out of your comfort zone goes wrong. You know what? Getting out of my comfort zone went so wrong. I don't know. I think I told this story on air. There was someone I met a New Year's. I think it's been a few years ago when Ben first moved down here. That was just like, to this day, man, that was like one of the craziest. And then I messed up and dated a much younger woman. Like I had to do it twice because nothing reminded me on how old I am than that experience. Like that reminded me of like what it was like to be in my 20s and why I'm so glad to not be in my 20s. So no, not for me. Not that guy. Can't do it. And I have been turned down quite a few times in real life. And I'm not the 99 no's guy. You know, the David Cross joke. Maybe I get 99 no's. I am not the 99 no's guy. Dr. Claus says, I can attest Jason is a guy. The difference is we see him on the screen so many times a week. I hope that means I'm like a regular dude. I'm so fucking regular. I'm boringly regular. Toussaint calls me aggressively heterosexual. I don't know what that means. But Pressure John says lunch with Jason is brought to you by the generous support of USAID, Jacobin, and Project Mockingbird. Thank you. That's hilarious. I wish, because that'd be a badass fucking lunch. We'd probably go to the States for that. So, no, not at all. 3-ball hetero. Dusty says Big Daddy Kane is the most hetero man in history. Look, dude, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'm excited to be back. No better person to come back with than Alfie. You know, you're going to talk about dating and AI, you might as well talk to the guy that fucked a robot. And fucking a robot is not an easy task. You know, not only did he fuck a robot, but after he fucked a robot, he still found someone that wanted to marry him. So that's where everyone's hope should lie. I give a fuck about your gender or sexual preference. That is where your hope should lie. And the fact that this dude not only did that, wrote a book about it. And someone still was like, oh yeah, you know, I don't care that your dick's all chewed up and chafed shit. I'll still marry you. Either the game is on another level, or there could just be somebody for everybody, which I don't really believe either. So I'm going to go. We'll be back Tuesday. I totally forgot what the shows were, but I know next week is like a black ass week on this show. Like I think I planned it to come back from DC and the week of rewind shows with some really good stuff with Teray and Bert. So I'm excited about that. So we'll be back Sunday. Actually, I think Ben will be back doing the show Sunday, Philosophy for the People, which has actually been doing really well on this channel, definitely in the audio only. So definitely check that out. 1 p.m. Pacific time, it'll start. Leave your dating stories in the comments. Again, I cannot say my worst dating experience because it is not fit for the main show. Just know that I never saw that person again. And I can't see him again. Even if I wanted to, I can't. The violation is too much. But if you want to hear that story, become a patron for as little as $3 a month and $30 for the year. You can hear horrible dating stories, way too many dick jokes, and a lot of analysis of bullshit internet culture. Okay, everyone make up that story in the comments. What happened to Jason, says Lady Braga. Don't tell her. She's got to earn that right. And she saw me in real life. She could have asked. She could have been like, hey, Jason, I don't know you from Adam, but I've watched your show. Tell me again about that horrible dating story where you met that woman. How about this? How about I tell you guys the part about the story and I'll stop it when it gets good. So I met here. I'm serious. Let's do this. I met this woman when I first came to Mexico on Tinder. She was one of the few matches I had in country because there wasn't at the time. I don't know what it looks like now, but there wasn't a lot of people on Tinder in Mexico. Weird. And we were around the same age. She was a little younger. And we met on like a Friday or something. And we met downtown Rosarito. And she was coming. She said she was coming from like a kid's party or something, but she was like really dressed up. And I was like, what kind of fucking kid's party do you wear an evening dress to? That's weird. Was the kid having like a quinceañera or some shit? But anyway, we met at this coffee shop in downtown Rosarito, and we're hanging out. We had a good time. And then we kind of coincidentally parked near each other. And then we were in her car and we were talking in the car. We started making out a little bit in the car. And I was like, look, I have a place not too far away. If you want, we can go to the place. Like, I know that sounds like creepy, but it's all good. She goes, not tonight. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's all good. She goes, no. I totally want to go to your house, just not tonight. She goes, pick any other day, not tonight. And I was like, all right, tomorrow. She goes, I can't do it tomorrow, but I can do it Sunday. I remember it wasn't the next day. It was like the day after. And I was like, word? She goes, yeah, we'll go out Sunday and I'll go to your house. I promise. I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And, we said goodbye. She sent me a message on the preferred messaging system in every country except for the United States, WhatsApp, the day of. And she goes, meet me at Ollie's Pizza. I had no idea where it was. And she sent me the address. Meet me there at this time. I go to Ollie's Pizza. I have my best button up at the time on. Ollie's Pizza has become kind of a favorite spot for TIR people when they come visit Mexico. And I'm waiting at the pizza place. I'm sitting at the bar because I want to sit somewhere where I can be seen in my crispy denim button-up shirt, right? And they're like, you want to order food? I'm like, no. And I'm messaging her, no response. Right? Awesome. All this is in English. Yes, Lady Braga. This is all in English. She spoke very good English. And she kind of had this look like, you ever seen those 90s movies where the woman has like paint on her overalls and glasses? And they made fun of it in not another teen movie. Like, oh, no, not her. She's got paint on her overalls. She was kind of one of those people where you're like, I think you're really hot, but you dress like not hot. But I think you're probably hot. Like, I find you attractive, but I think there's something hiding, and I can't quite put my finger on it. She was like a darker skinned Mexican woman with like a short Halle Berry cut. Remember the Halle Berry cut? Like, she kind of like had that cut. Really cute. Glasses, really cute. And so it's an hour. I'm sitting at the bar. Still, I'm afraid to order. I'm ordering like appetizers for myself. The bartender goes, or the waiter goes, hey man, she ain't coming. You know how bad that is when the waiter looks at you and is like, hey man, I think you're going to take an L on this one. We're all watching you here. And we know she ain't coming. Like, we're just going to take this menu away because you don't need this second menu. So, again, I'm trying to message, nothing. All of a sudden, I get a message. Are you still there? Yes. That's how she knows that she's got me. I'm still there. I'm still at the fucking bar. She knew any person worth their salt would have fucking left after like 45 minutes and no communication. But I was the desperate moron who just moved in, terrified, living in a foreign country, and I'm going to wait at the bar until I can't wait at the bar anymore. So she goes, I'm on my way. Give me 20 minutes. Waiter sees the phone ring. He's like, oh, was that her? She said, give her 20 minutes. Oh, 20 minutes, huh? 20 minutes. And so now 20 minutes has passed. So I'm messaging like, are you close? Yeah, I'm close. I'm pulling up now. And she gets there. I'm kind of anxious and mad at the same time, but I'm also very excited. And she walks in the door, and she's not wearing a very like amazing outfit. Like, again, she could have dressed like her. How can I put this? She dressed very conservatively for the way she was built. And it's cool, I guess. But I didn't even know. Anyway, so she walks in and she's looking at me and she has this great big smile. And I'm like so excited. So in my mind, I like run over, but I'm sure it was more of like a saunter. like a puppy. Like a puppy when they see their owner. I'm sure that's how I went over there. And I go to give her a hug, and she grabs me and starts making out with me in the middle of the restaurant. And for me, that made up a lot of the embarrassment of sitting there being that dude that got stood up, to the point where the staff is cracking jokes at you. Now they see me making out with this woman, and she's like, "Well, let's go. Let's go to your house. You want to eat anything? You know, would you like a drink?" So I get in my car. She gets in her car. She follows me to my place, and we get to the house, and we just start going at it from the moment we walk in the door. And we go into my bedroom, where she's standing on my bed, and she, not like a striptease way, but in a very like efficient way, takes off all of her clothes. And I did take a step back and go, holy shit. I think I said, holy shit. She was just built, ass, bam, titties, bam, everything, just bam. I was like, oh, wow. You were like hiding that in that fucking, you're the pain in their overalls classes. And I'll stop the story there. If you want to hear the rest of the story, you have to go to the champagne room and hear how that all turned out, because boy, oh boy, was it not what I assumed. And you just have to try to figure it out from there. Or you can go. It's the one, it's the only champagne room we did on a Wednesday. It'll be easy to find. I think it's from like a month or two ago. And you can hear the rest of that story. But that's all I'm going to tell you guys about. Lady Braga says, I'm running 100. Oh, I'll add this. I'll add this little nugget. She looks at me, and so at that point I take off my clothes, because it's only polite. If someone's naked standing on your bed, you don't just stand there with all your clothes on. You take off all your clothes too. Don't be rude, people. And she goes, do you have condoms? And I go, yeah. And she goes, like, because she saw the apprehension in the yeah. She's like, well, how many? I was like, I have one. She goes, you have one? Well, yeah. I didn't. Yeah, we're both old. Like, what the fuck, What do you think this is? And she looks at me. She goes, look, we're going to do this, and then you're going to go to the store, and you're going to get in the box. Again, you want to hear the rest of the story? Which does not end cool at all. At all. A violation happened. Kush looks says, snort some blue chew and get. I'm terrified of that shit, dude. These boners are all natural, so you just got to deal with it. And I live in a land where I can just get that shit anywhere. Jason got paid. No, this isn't the squirting story, Andrew. I forgot I told that story. Oh shit, I gotta stop telling you guys about my life. I didn't get paid. Eric remembers. Eric was there. He said it's still processing what he heard that day. Hey, listen to that episode in the champagne room. Fucking hilarious. I can laugh at it now, but at the moment there was a lot. I was like, oof, this ain't right. But Jason got pegged. I did. Oh my God. Look at Lady Brock. It's like, what day was that champagne room? I don't remember. It was a Wednesday. All I remember was a Wednesday. It's like the only Wednesday champagne room. And it's me and Mac for, I forget how long we did it for, but we both were dying laughing, just tears. The chat was insane. So if you find that episode, you are finding classic TIR champagne room, embarrassing story. Why? Like, you listen to that episode, and that is why I'm single. That alone. It's like, oh, because this dude says the stories about his life on air that are just unnecessary. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope I see a little patron bump, even if it's for a couple weeks. I think it's worth that. Definitely not something I'm a fan of that happened that day. So I'll see you guys Tuesday. TIR will be back Sunday with Ben and Stefan. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys. And we are out.